The title does not lie. Yes, I filmed the past two intros back to back. So today we're going to be talking about the cover art for SILVERBELL. Today we're going to talk graphic novel cover art. The first couple of cover sketches that I did actually ended up seriously influencing the story moving forward, including ideas about this retro-futuristic city, a lot of my color choices, and even the shape of SILVERBELL's bell itself. If you'd like to check out SILVERBELL the project itself, the pre-launch page for the Kickstarter is below. If you haven't been here before, you should check out the hour-long making of video that I posted a couple weeks back. And without further ado, here's how we created the cover for SILVERBELL. So here is the cover that we're going to be illustrating today. Ignore the other page. We have to draw a very large bell dead center with a couple of colored ribbons. We're going to leave a large white space for the font, as all the font is done digitally with colors lifted directly from the painting. All the borders and some of the little lines up here, the idea for me is that I want this to be framed. That is to say, the paint is the border, and the remainder of the cover will be stark white. The idea here is that the city is completely upside down. While her body isn't in the cover, it's more of a spiritual thing, right? The title is SILVERBELL. We're focused on her silver bell. When her body is destroyed, her bell remains. All these buildings and clouds are a cityscape that will kind of lift upwards as she's sort of rising. From the shelf, she will not be rising. A little bit of spiritual play there with what the story represents, but also I think it looks really cool. And I'm thinking that all of the blues and reds that will be in the clouds, along with the golden hue of the buildings, will give a really beautiful contrast as the color fades into the white framing at the bottom. All of this down here will be completely blank white. So without further ado, so because of the nature of the frame in the cover, and because of the way that watercolor kind of comes across naturally on the page, you get a lot of bright white hues. What I think I'm going to do for the actual painting itself is have everything within that frame on this board. So we're going to make everything a little bit bigger of a scale than it would be if it were, say, a page. All the margins will be done digitally, and we'll kind of drop the entire painting that is the cover into a digitally made frame. Typically when I illustrate SILVERBELL's bell, because I'm using SilverPoint and I can't erase, I'm very careful. I'm very careful because there's no erasing with SilverPoint. You're putting metal down, not graphite. I typically use a selection of circular stencils or a compass, but in this case, because of the scale, we're just going to use this 5-pound plate. Now I'm really hoping that the rust doesn't rub off, but we're going to be super careful. When I draw her bells, I typically do it with about half of a template, and then because of the fact that her head is not entirely round, we eyeball the rest. See, it does look a little too big, but only because I don't have margins on here, I need to keep that in mind. And stop freaking out and just commit to what I'm doing. No more freaking out. I don't know how well you can actually see that line, but there are a handful of small scuff marks. We're actually just going to incorporate some of this into the piece because she has an opening anyway. Just add some character. I just made an absolutely ridiculous mistake. This is not the right angle. Now I think what I'm going to do is actually just cover that up with a little bit of ground. Okay, so her general shape is kind of laid out here. See, we're going to clip these little 2 triangles off. Both those points will be covered up with either ground or white out. We're going to do some hue testing and see which pigment works best. Now with the bell roughed in, I think we're going to rough the entire cityscape in. The clouds and such I'm going to eyeball and kind of decide on colors whenever we get to painting. I won't even really sketch those in. It has come to my attention that this building is significantly larger in my imagination than it was on this original rendering. And that's perfectly fine, I think it adds to the vibe. Okay, so first things first, I wanted to thicken up all of these lines. You'll be able to see the difference in a couple of cuts here, but it becomes pretty prominent the more that you layer up the silver, just how thick and how rich the color becomes. I really enjoy the silver point line. Despite its softness, it really does have a beauty to it. Now, I think my biggest point of irritation so far with this cover is the fact that I couldn't do the entire thing outside. The first night that I went out there, the temperature dropped really fast and then it started to sprinkle, and I can't exactly have my boards out there while it's raining. Doesn't really work too well. But I will admit that on this stormy October evening, it was pretty awesome to be able to bring the easel inside and put on a nice warm light and get to work. I just continued layering the silver until I was really happy with the level of thickness and the level of weight that each line had. Once the image had a level of weight and vivacity that I was pretty happy with, we went ahead and started shading. Now this is just part one, so everything that you're about to see is just kind of like a continuous process, right? These are the initial layerings, and then we're going to continue to go on and on and on, and eventually everything gets richer and richer and richer, and it takes forever to build the silver point up this way. I mean forever. At least with a pencil, you can kind of press down and the pressure applies a particular level of grit, but this is not that. Every single line applies the same amount of weight. And it just builds up with time and patience. And then we're about to switch to some color. Yes, I'm fully aware of it. Just please don't bring it up. Again, this is a part one, plenty of time to fix things, plenty of time to get things in shape. My idea here was to go for a really powerful golden shine. Now, all these buildings have a different level of architecture, and in terms of the larger layout of the city, they are spread exactly where they're supposed to be, layered on top of one another in the way that you kind of see it from a particular view. Part two will have the finished painting, all the digital touch-ups, and the text, and the final cover.